The president has also not made any statements about that viral video that we played here of a young migrant boy that shows him crying and walking through the desert alone. This video you're seeing surfacing as the number of illegal crossings have reached a record high.
Joining us to discuss, Texas Congressman Brian Babin. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time. We hear that you yourself have visited the border recently. Why is it you think that the president and the vice president have not made a trip?
Because they do not want to see it. I think they are. All I can say is President Biden. I wouldn't expect him to go down there. I mean, he stays behind closed doors most of the time. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is supposedly our new border czar, though, that's a very different story. She hasn't made a comment. The only thing we heard from her when asked, she cackled and laughed. But if she's the border czar, where is she? And quite frankly, the Biden administration has created this terrible humanitarian disaster that's going on, and to see this young migrant boy coming across the desert, some parent, some coyote, some guardian had turned this kid loose out there in the desert. He's wandering around. This ought to give every American the chills. To see that this is going on our border. 19,000 unaccompanied children have come across our border, and it is a humanitarian disaster no matter how you measure it.
It's heartbreaking to see that video that we're playing there, and I'm sure, Congressman, what you saw at those facilities would have also been quite concerning. Can you tell us sort of the conditions that these kids were being kept in?
I can. They were appalling conditions. We went to several facilities. Number one, we went to the CBP facility in Donna, which has a 250 person capacity. There were 5,700 children in that facility when we went through. We had individuals that work for DHS were trying to keep us from taking pictures. They obviously did not want us in there. It was pretty obvious, and in fact, just blatantly obvious. We took them anyway, and as you're showing on the television right now, they were just stacked up in there like sardines. It was terrible. Well, just no social distancing whatsoever. While Dr. Fauci is telling us we've got to social distance and continue to wear masks, they're piled on top of one another, and the cost is staggering. The CBP facilities were costing something like $16 million a month, and now we find out that HHS is spending $60 million per week housing these tens of thousands of unaccompanied children that are coming across. 173,000 individuals, undocumented individuals, came across in March, and plus the staggering cost of having them come in and having to deal with them. Many of them have been released into the public and are COVID positive. It's just incredible.
Well, you talk about this high cost, and again, Washington Post confirming what you're saying here in their report, $60 million per week on migrant children here. Makes you wonder where exactly those funds are coming from, quite frankly. Who's really paying for it to make sure that these children are cared for?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you it's going to come right out of the hip pockets of the American taxpayer, because we have to accommodate these people coming across, and they're uninvited, believe me. Actually, they are invited. This president has invited them over with his campaign rhetoric. But I would ask this question: what about our own children? What about the kids that we have? What about the American people who have been out of work for over a year because of a pandemic? And as I said before, what about the people who are coming into this country with COVID positive? And my heart goes out to these people. Don't get me wrong, but we cannot just open the floodgates to our country and expect the American people to pay for all this. We have to educate them. We have to medicate them, and sometimes, obviously, we have to incarcerate them because many of these kids. They are members of gangs such as MS-13. And so the Biden administration has created this absolutely horrendous disaster. They do not want to admit it, don't even want to see it, as we spoke about earlier in our segment. And the American people have got to have some kind of security, national security, which is the absolute function, mandate, and duty of the President of the United States. In fact, all of us who are elected officials have to make sure that Americans come first, and we obviously are not.
Well, of course, as you say, you expressed you feel sorry for these people who feel like there's no better option from their home country as opposed to what the United States could offer them. Just clearly, as the president has said, it's not the time. Secretary Mayorkas is set to make his third trip to the U.S. border. Is there something perhaps that he could do while he's there to really turn this crisis around?
Absolutely, Emma. What he needs to do is to reverse the reversal that he already put in, and President Biden put with his executive orders on our migrant protection protocols. I think Remain in Mexico is what that program is, and we're barely utilizing that. Title 42, turn these people back during a the COVID pandemic. That has worked, and it is still being used by the Biden administration, but only to a very limited extent. If they were using it fully, as President Trump was doing, we wouldn't have these people coming in by the tens of thousands like we see. And then, for goodness sakes, please start rebuilding, resume the construction of this border wall. When I was down there, it was so obvious the people would come in, they would just come right through the open gaps that were left because the construction was so abruptly halted. And we have $1 billion+ sitting there not being used. In fact, on the contrary, this $1 billion may have to be paid to people to not build the wall now because of what President Biden has done. And there's a lot of evidence, Emma, that the law was broken by President Biden when he executively ordered the construction to be halted as well. Because Congress passed that and mandated that this wall be used and these funds be used for that purpose.
Would there be any sort of follow-up investigation into halting those funds?
Yes, ma'am, there sure is. The GAO, in fact, I actually wrote a letter asking the GAO to investigate this because we certainly believe that Congress is the one that has the constitutional duty to control the spending and the purse strings of this nation. And we voted $1 billion+ to make sure that this wall gets constructed. And that was done, and it's now been violated. So I really believe, and that's why I sent a letter to GAO asking for this investigation, and there's one proceeding, and we hope that this will be called for what it is, a violation of the Constitution.
Again, that investigation looking into the Biden administration's decision to halt building the border wall. As we're hearing reports, they might consider restarting it. All right, Congressman Brian Babin joining us live on the program. We appreciate it, Congressman. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Emma. God bless.